I myself am learning how to apologize and be comfortable with apologizing.
If you live in a world where there's a lot of danger, that actually will work to your benefit from a survival standpoint.
But does birth order have an effect into our personalities?
How can we make peace with our past? Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ease. Today we're having a very meaningful conversation with Dr. Bonnie. Dr. Bonnie, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for
We
having
love
me.
you.
We're so excited to grow and learn today.
How did you become a developmental psychologist, and what is that in layman's terms?
Okay, I'll start with answering what is a developmental psychologist, because it's not what most people think it is.
Yeah.
Studying development means that you are studying change over time. So in the realm of psychology, how does one thing influence another? Most people think that that automatically is associated with childhood, but it isn't necessarily. A lot of developmental psychologists study end of life, for example, but not many are studying the middle, because what's happening? Like, who wants to study what happened to you between 30 and 40? It's just not that interesting.
What?
Right? But so the reality is that the most dynamic change is occurring early in our lives. Therefore, developmental psychologists primarily study the earliest stages of life, particularly as it pertains to psychological outcomes.
Interesting. We didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was assuming it was early.
It's like child psychology.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. It isn't. So development is a method of studying, not an actual field of research.
Gotcha.
Whoa, okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And I didn't know that either. And I had zero interest in developmental psychology when I came to UCLA. So a little backstory, I took a very non-traditional path to where I am right now. I was raised in a really wild environment. I grew up here in the Valley, but did you know that there are like fundamentalist Christian cults in Northridge? So
What?
I was raised in a hardcore Christian. It was actually a cult. Like, we all just stayed. There were about 50 of us. It was really small. It's not legitimate. It doesn't have a name. So it was crazy. It was a crazy childhood. And when I graduated high school and left the house, I was ill-equipped to do anything but like memorize Bible verses. I did not go to college. I went straight into the workforce. And long story short, by the time I was 29, I'm like not college educated and divorced, like married some guy. That was over in a year and a half. Like, I was a mess. I was a mess. And so I decided, like, I'm just going to start over completely from scratch. And I should probably start by getting my degree, because it's always pissed me off that people will ask me, like, where'd you go to school? I'm like, I didn't.
That's how I
it felt
feel right now.
So have you not gone to?
I haven't gone to university.
Okay, you will.
Yeah,
And
I will.
I'll talk to you about why it's better to wait anyway. But
Okay.
so here I am, like 29, sitting in these classes. Like, I went to community college. Nothing glamorous was happening in my life at all. I went to community college. I was working as a nanny. I transferred to UCLA. I'm sitting there in those classrooms like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Like, I'm 10 years older than everybody. Like, I am such a loser. I felt like such a failure at life at that point. Like, this should be when I'm really taking off in my career, and I'm doing what 18-year-olds are doing. I majored in psychology because I had no idea what I was doing. So like, there was no huge passion for it necessarily, but I'm like, I don't know, I like people. Like, that's why it's such a popular major, I think.
Yeah.
It's where you land when you don't know what you want.
A lot of
And
my
I ended
friends.
up in a developmental psych class because it fit my schedule, but I'm not really into kids,
Yeah.
like whatever. But that was the class where I was taught, like, basically at the level of the neuron, what had happened to me in childhood had shaped who I became. Like, the reason why I'm sitting in this classroom at age 30 can be explained through neuroscience.
Wow.
Based on what I experienced growing up. And it was profound. It changed my whole life. It completely changed my perspective on myself. Because there was so much shame that I felt in just feeling like kind of a loser at life in general. And to have it explained in a way that didn't like absolve me of responsibility for my choices, but like made it make sense. Like, why me? Why am I such a disaster? Which then like really empowered me to be like, I can do something. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with depth psych and developmental neuroscience. And next thing I know, I'm working as a research assistant. And then next thing I know, I'm applying for a PhD program, studying how early life trauma shapes our social and emotional development.
I think it's really interesting and comforting that you explained like how you didn't go straight into college after high school, because so many people can relate to that. Even my mom, like she is in her 50s now, and now she's trying to go to nursing school. So there's never a set timeline that we really have to follow.
There isn't. And in fact, I actually believe that it worked so much to my advantage to be going later, to already have had some life experience and the opportunity to mature. I'm sure you guys have heard like your brain isn't fully formed before you're 25. So then why are we asking 18-year-olds to tell us what they want to do with the rest of their life and make investments of hundreds of thousands of dollars in that path, knowing that the actual part of their brain does, like the part of your brain responsible for that kind of decision making is the part that isn't formed yet. So the real answer to that question is capitalism.
Money.
It's money.
Make
right?
money.
Like,
make money.
start
Give
making money. I don't care if
Yeah.
you like what you do. I don't care if you're like, if you know what you want, just start, please get in the workforce, start paying taxes. So when I did discover what I discovered at school, despite the fact that it was like not all that cute or glamorous, I knew what I wanted. Like it was easy for me to be like, yes, this is it. This is what I'm pursuing. I'm going for it. And I had the maturity to be able to make that decision that I don't think I ever would have been able to make if I had started at 18.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I went into college and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just took a public health major just because it was the easiest. But probably the pressure from like having an immigrant parent, I was like, okay, I need to work harder. But I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I still don't. Yeah.
Again, like, nor should you. Like, I always tell because psych students especially, there is no prescribed path for your career when you graduate. When you have a bachelor's in psych, like that will get you a job at Starbucks, right? There's nowhere to go. It's not like if you major in engineering or something like that, right? So I have so many students coming to me ready to graduate, just totally freaking out, being like, I have no idea what I'm doing or what I want to do. And I was like, that's perfect. Like if you're coming to me being like, I've known since I was 8 years old that I was gonna be a lawyer and like I'm more worried about you, right? Because how do you know? Like what makes you so sure? And I know those people now. I know those people who like in elementary school were telling me their career paths, they are miserable. Right? Because you didn't give yourself a chance to like grow into yourself.
I really want to reemphasize to the audience how important early development is to who we are today and who we are like presently. Could you talk a little bit about that? I know you mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually can't be overstated. I became so interested in the neuroscience piece of it that's where I was like, oh, you cannot deny this. This is so real. Like there's this phenomenon in brain development called sensitive periods. And so basically different parts of your brain are taking snapshots of the world at different points across your development and deciding how to function. So like you'll have a couple years dedicated to, for example, your fear response. And so whatever is happening in the world during the time that region in your brain is taking shape is going to just basically set up how it works, almost like concrete hardening. And then once it's done, we move on to the next brain region. I mean, that's not exactly how it works, but you get the idea. Like, so once something is set, once that gets set, it's not really going to change all that much. So something can happen in your infancy, something could happen in your really early childhood that completely dictates how you respond to threat and fear in the world. And that locked in, like on average, we know that that's set for females around age 4 and for males around age 6. So like answering questions like, why am I the person who will jump 8 feet in the air when a door closes? Like a door slams. I'm the one who just
Get scared. Yeah.
I'm crazy, like crazy. Somebody will come up and be like, hi. I'm like, you're like, why am I like this? Why am I like this? And I understand it now in a way that I didn't before. Like there was a lot going on when I was really, really little. And it's not that the body is breaking when, like, it's not like bad things happen in the world, so then bad things happen to your body. That's not actually how we're designed. We're designed to adapt. So if there are a lot of bad things happening in the world, it's actually going to serve me to be really sensitive to threat and danger around me. Like, anxiety is to be like always scanning for like, is there danger? Is there danger? Is there danger? If you live in a world where there's a lot of danger, that actually will work to your benefit from a survival standpoint, to be like, oh, I can catch that. I can, when somebody's eyebrow goes up a certain way, I know that that means, you know, like when you like hyper analyze conversations or the way that somebody's looking at you, like, am I in danger? Is that a threat? All of that is getting set up really, really early in development, and then it plays out over time. And I think that there's a distinction that needs to be made between like understanding where some of our issues have come from in childhood and taking responsibility for those things, right? So like, none of us are responsible for how we were raised. That those are circumstances that were beyond our control. But whatever the outcome is, then it becomes our responsibility. Like, if I have an anxiety disorder, that's my problem, right? I need to see it there. I can't just like act that out on everybody around me and be like, sorry, I had a messed up childhood, right? So like, I think that's a really important distinction, because when people will talk about like, oh, well, this is from my childhood, I think that's why people roll their eyes, because they think you're trying to absolve yourself of accountability for why you are the way you are. But it's like, no, that's just the why. That's just, and I'm dealing with it. And I think also understanding that why can help remove some of the shame.
That's so interesting how like from just at a young age, like it shapes the way we are. Is it because when we grow our brains like that young, do we get stuck into like patterns? Because you're saying that you kind of create the same environment as you get older.
Right. Okay. So yes. And that connects actually to attachment theory, which is something I'm super excited to talk to you guys about. But yeah, so imagine like if your brain is like concrete that's being poured, it's liquid, it's malleable, it is going to take whatever shape it takes while it's being poured. The aspects of how our brain functions are similar to that. And the concrete is being poured in childhood, right? So it's like your brain is taking the shape of the world that you live in. And then it kind of is like set and, you know, move on to other things, right? So I think that is why we can end up with like triggers that we don't even understand. Like, why does that trigger me so much? You don't have to have explicit memory of what happened for it to have an impact on who you are. The part that I wanted to talk about how we sort of replicate those environments is connected to this idea of attachment theory, which is that, okay, if our brains are being shaped early on based on the home that we're being raised in, one of the questions that need to be answered in the brain is, what does love look like? What does care look like? And that definition is going to be written by the type of care that you receive. So babies attach to their caregivers regardless of the quality of care that they give. We all do it. We all do it. We all love our mommies. We all love our mommy. It doesn't matter who mommy is, how mommy acts. We love mommy. And our understanding of that is like evolutionarily, if human babies don't have a caregiver, we die. You know, we're not sea turtles. We can't just like waddle out into the ocean and start our day, right? Like we don't hatch out of an egg. Like we have to have somebody looking after us. So better to have a poor caregiver than no caregiver at all, right? So no matter what happens, we're going to create this bond with this person. And through that dynamic, we are learning to understand like, how valuable am I? When I have, you know, certain types of feelings or when I have a need, is it being met? All of that is getting set up really, really early on, right? And the brain is taking shape around that. And so once we basically have this definition of love, it kind of gets set and it's subconscious. It's totally subconscious. But as we get older, we start developing our friendships with people and then we start moving into romantic relationships. And whether you're aware of it or not, you're going to be like,
that's what
I know what love
means.
looks like.
Yeah.
I've seen it before. I know what it smells like. That one. I'll take that one. These patterns that people get into where like, why am I always picking the guy who's, you know, emotionally unavailable? Well, was your mother emotionally unavailable? Yep. Or was she inconsistent? Was she like rejecting? Like whatever it is, that's where we start seeing this replication of patterns because we are designed to seek out what we know.
Yeah. So it's a subconscious.
It's totally subconscious. It's totally subconscious, right? And so So there are different types of attachment styles. Like imagine that you were raised by a mom who was just like always super concerned about meeting your needs, not overbearing, like let you explore and really valued your opinion about things, like from a very young age, like what do you want to wear and what do you want to eat and where should we go today? And, all of that kind of stuff that is instilling in a person like, oh, this is what love looks like. My needs are valuable. When I say what I need, people listen and they respond appropriately. It's easy for me to state my needs because they're met.
They felt comfortable with their mom.
Yeah, they feel safe. Like if I ask for something, I'll get the thing that I need, right? Those people tend to go on to have really healthy romantic relationships because they'll tell you what they need. Like, you just did something that really offended me. I didn't appreciate the way that, and just feel like they can totally do that without any concern of, retribution. But when the setup is like, oh, mom sometimes was there for me, but sometimes she wasn't, it changes the way that we behave as well. And what that would be called an insecure resistant attachment. And what that typically ends up looking like is when you have like inconsistent caregiving. Sometimes mom is super on it. Sometimes she's not. I'm going to use my behavior to sort of manipulate the environment to try to get what I want. Because I know that sometimes she does it, right? Sometimes if I ask for something, she's there to meet my needs. So maybe I whine a lot or maybe I cry more because that might help her. Like I'm going to try to sort of manipulate her into giving me what I need because she can. Okay, now cut 20 years to the dynamic you're in with this person who is sometimes available and sometimes isn't, and you're so confused and you don't understand why they can turn it on and off, and now you're like tracking them on their phones to see where they are because you are trying to still manipulate the environment using my emotions
to get your attention.
Because I know you can do it. I've seen you do it before. And then there's the version where the parent was absolutely consistent and just was always rejecting, right? And so when that happens, a child will develop an insecure avoidant attachment. And basically that one looks like, it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what I do, you are not there to meet my needs. So I'm going to switch strategies and I'm going to look out for number one. So what love looks like to me is I mind my business. Yeah, I'll take care of myself. Thank you very much.
Whoa.
You still point.
No, her eyes were like,
Oh, yeah, right. You're like,
no. I relate. But just her reaction was
Well,
like,
I'm having realization.
right.
Yeah.
So this is called insecure avoidant attachments, right? I avoid, like, I'm just gonna, if you leave, that's fine. I'll take care of myself. I'm not going to cry about it.
these attachment styles are similar to like what we look for in a people, but can we also adapt those same attachment styles and show that within ourselves? Like, for instance, if we feel like our parents were avoidant, we'll act avoidant too.
Absolutely. What does love and relationship look like? I'm not only going to seek out people who are like the caregivers that I was raised with, but I'm also going to mirror that behavior myself.
So I kind of wanted to go back to how you were saying that when we're young, it's almost like pouring concrete into a moldable shape.
Yeah.
How accurate is that analogy? I'm asking in the sense of like concrete is like concrete and it's firm and like you can't move it once it like solidifies.
Right.
Are we like
no
stuck?
No. So that analogy is too black and white. We have brains that are plastic. Neuroplasticity is real. We can always change the neural pathways and change the structure. So that always exists. That said, some changes are more challenging to make than others. Like everything has like a different level of concreteness.
That reminds me of something my elementary school teacher told me a long time ago. And he was like, if your writing is sloppy now, change it now so that you can just keep good handwriting, because as you get older, it's going to be harder to change your habits.
Exactly.
How are you able to pinpoint where these problems, for lack of a better word, come from?
So what happens when you're young matters a lot. A lot. And again, it doesn't have to be that we study the things that are really dramatic. Because that's how we can really see the effects, but this exists across the spectrum. It can be small. So I think what's really important is to acknowledge where these things come from, because again, it's not you. You're not an asshole because you're a perfectionist. You're not an asshole because you keep your distance from people. You're not an asshole because you start drama. You have adapted somehow to think that that's what's going to keep you safe, right? No, it's not shame. It's not you. It's something that you're doing. Understanding that can allow you to start making changes, right? But it's really, really hard.
It is.
It's just like learning another language. It's not natural, but it's worth the effort because then you can shift the trajectory again, and head in a different direction. I feel like that's exactly what happened to me. Like I was headed off to God knows where. And truly, you guys, it wasn't looking good, like how not cute is it? Like my 30th birthday came and I'm like, oh, I'm the divorced non-college graduate. That's way to go, Bonnie.
So many people do that.
And I'm so lucky that I like fell into this class that explained it to me, that just like broke my whole world open. And so that is what enabled me to have the intellectual understanding so that I could start making the adjustments. But the adjustments cannot happen intellectually. So just to know what the deal is not enough for you to change. Like admitting you're a perfectionist doesn't make you not a perfectionist. You're like, no, I know. Like if you're sitting with the therapist and they're like, well, it looks like you're a perfectionist. You're like, that's why I'm here. I already know. Like, thank you. How do I make that change?
Yeah.
That's the much harder work. And that happens when we are able to start making changes to our nervous system.
What are some like small things that we can realize in ourselves, or for someone who's listening that is struggling and they know that what they're dealing with is harmful to them and they want to grow out of it?
So, right, the first step is that sort of acknowledgement. Like, I see what this is and I recognize that I cannot get myself out of it just by like intellectualizing my way out, right? I'm not going to be able to leave this person, or I'm not going to be able to get out of this unhealthy dynamic with my parents, whatever the thing may be. The first things that can be really, really helpful are social support. If you have it, like if you have access to the quality of friends who you could tell them like, hey, I recognize that this guy is so bad for me, your friends are going to be like, yes, we know.
Yeah. We've been telling you.
Help. You have to find somebody who can talk. You can start talking through these things and they can keep mirroring back to you like what the patterns are and where this is rooted, because it's going to be rooted in you. When we start talking about solutions to healing the nervous system, it can get really frustrating because the types of stuff that we know, basically this is about making your brain more plastic. And the types of things that make your brain more plastic, this is so annoying. Exercise, mindfulness.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but
nature.
it works. It works.
It works. Meditating, so good for your brain, you guys. Like, but all of that just feels like, ugh, like, and also how am I supposed to meditate when I cannot quiet my mind for 5 seconds, So it can be really challenging, but sometimes it's literally just like, go touch grass.
You mentioned like, sometimes we're not aware of the certain things that happened to us when we were younger that have now impacted us. What are some things that could be factors? Factors.
Yes. Okay. So at the end of the day, any trauma or adversity that you've experienced is stress. Not all stress is bad. We know this, right? Like you need a certain amount of stress in order to function in your life. But when the expectation of what has to happen exceeds our ability to meet it, then it becomes what we call toxic stress, right? It exceeds our capacity to meet. Like being like, oh, my mom doesn't believe me when I come home and tell her that I did my best on my homework today. And so now I'm not going to get dinner. And I'm 5, so there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
That's like that's a toxic level of stress, right?
Yeah.
And so then my nervous system is now going to try to adapt to that to make sure that I can survive the fact that I don't have power over the situation. Children are, for the most part, relying on other people to help them deal with stuff, right? Like if somebody told me today, you don't get dinner tonight because I'll flip them off and I'm going to go to In-N-Out.
How do we begin to pinpoint those specific experiences? If I start to think of all of the things that maybe could have happened to me, I feel like I'd be like stuck there for a little bit. How can you begin to pinpoint these are the things that really affected me? This is how I can start healing this certain thing.
Okay. So again, there tend to be these sort of roundabout ways of addressing it. traditional therapy would basically be like, just talk through every memory that you have, right? And that can feel really overwhelming and at some point becomes unhelpful, right? Like if I spend too many hours describing the things that happened to me when I was a kid, I'm going to get worked up again, right? It's not really helping. But there are ways that we can sort of bypass the intellectual part of it and just get straight to the nervous system part. And so have you guys heard of something called EMDR?
Yes.
Movement.
Yeah.
Where you don't even have to say it out loud. You can just you can pick a memory. And then they're doing either like the bilateral stimulation within the hands or the eyes, like basically it's almost the equivalent of being hypnotized, right? Like something is going back and forth and you process this emotion that has been sitting in your body all of this time and then it's gone.
Wow.
Like you were saying, like we identify ourselves as like a certain way. A lot of people think that introverts and extroverts is like, oh, because I'm an introvert, I'm so shy. Like they categorize themselves as this is who I am and it's just because I'm an introvert. But I think it's important to show that like if you are an introvert, it just means like that's where you charge. And an extrovert, that just means you just charge around other people. You charge socially. But it also doesn't mean that you're not social if you're an introvert.
What we understand personality is that it's very much built off of your temperament. So we're all born with a certain type of temperament, how we respond to the world, how we take the world in, and then we build our personality on top of our temperament. You are predisposed to either be the type of person who shows up at a party, none of your friends are there yet, so you go grab a drink and you start talking to everybody. Or do you show up at a party, none of your friends are there yet, you pretend like you're texting somebody something really important on the sidewalk until your friends show up.
So what are the different types of temperaments? Because my therapist has also brought this up to me, and she's told me mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, will you tell me what she said?
Yeah, she said, I'm slow to warm up. Once I get to know them, I'll feel comfortable. Then you see the full me.
Temperament has been defined in a lot of different ways. And some of the older models they had, it was like easy, slow to warm, difficult.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And so she's saying you were like in the slow to warm.
Slow
like
to warm.
They call it, I think now they call it cautious. They've changed that because we also got rid of like easy and difficult. I think it's like fun and feisty. I don't know, whatever. Like nobody wants to hear they have a difficult temperament.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're feisty.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
Newer research, right? There's newer research that shows that really what your temperament is made up of is how reactive you are and how quickly you can regulate. If somebody were to slam a door right now, I'm going to jump 8 feet in the air. That is who I am. It's baked in at this point.
Whoa. And what is like, obviously they're very different, but I'm kind of like having a hard time like seeing it's like layers to who we are, our identity.
Yeah. Temperament plus life experience equals personality.
Oh.
Right? So you came with, for the most part, this innate predisposition to how you respond to the world. And then your life has been what it is. And you multiply those two things together, it spits out your personality, right?
What times what equals identity?
Okay. So like up until a certain age, like we even know like a lot of like babies look in the mirror, they don't know that it's them. They'll wave, right? They're like, oh, there's another kid. Like it takes us a minute to recognize ourselves. And when we start being able to recognize ourselves in a mirror, to be like, oh, that's me, something else clicks and you say, oh, that's how people see me.
Oh.
Before you can identify yourself, you are just living your experience outward, right? Like my whole life, everything I do is just coming from me and going out. I'm not looking at how people look at me living my life.
You mentioned how your two boys are the same or different.
Wildly different.
I feel like birth order does have an impact because when someone has an older child, like you give so much attention to that kid and this is your first time parenting. You don't know how to parent. So there's just so much support that goes into a first kid. And then after the second kid, you're more lenient because you're like, oh, I've experienced this, they're not going to die. This kid is fine. Like they're going to be okay. But does birth order have an effect to our personalities and like kind of shape us?
Yeah. I don't know that birth order in and of itself is shaping our personalities, but surely, as you mentioned, the way that you're being parented based on birth order is going to have an impact on your development and likely your personality. So when we're conceptualizing parenting styles, the two factors included are warmth, which we could just like say love is synonymous for that, how much warmth and how much control is happening. And it's very common that with a firstborn, the control is higher. The warmth factor is going to be determined just by who the parents are, whether or not they have the capacity to like show the love and meet their children, but the control might vary depending on the birth order. So what a best case scenario, we have parents who are high in warmth and relatively high in control. And by control, we don't mean like telling you what to do, but by their level of involvement. But what happens very commonly is that parents will focus so much on the control piece that they lose the warmth. So it's like, we have very high expectations for you. And the reason why you're going to succeed is because we said so. Right? So it's like missing the support piece, right? And so that messes with people a lot. It's called authoritarian.
That's great to know. I feel like now I'm like learning more about being a parent because I have a little baby puppy.
Yes.
She's a year, so she's literally like a child. And also like I have like I'm trying to have a better green thumb so that I don't know, I just feel like you learn a lot from plants, like you said. Like plants are just like precious.
And that level of attentiveness is what allows somebody to nurture a life.
I kind of feel like this is like the perfect segue into like how our parents were raised and like the patterns that are like, I guess, formed as like generations go. You said that like trauma literally lives in our body. Maybe we can like get into this by understanding what epigenetics is.
Absolutely. The term epigenetics is, the word epi just means above. And so you are born with your DNA, but whether or not a gene turns on or turns off is controlled by other factors. So the reason that this is significant is like we think of course, like the behavioral influences, the way that my mom was raised by her mom probably influenced the way that she raised me because she acted a certain way. But what about my grandma's epigenome? Right? Like, what about how she was genetically programmed to come into this world and how did that impact my mom? Because it's inherited. For example, this is kind of the simplest, but the most fascinating example to me is the idea that, so a female fetus will have her ovaries complete before born and will have all of her eggs in her ovaries before she comes out.
Whoa.
So that means that the egg that made you was inside of your maternal grandmother.
Already.
Yeah. So what was your mom's mom going through when she was pregnant with your mom? It would be having a direct impact on half of your genes because they were in there. The egg that made you was there.
So if your grandma was like stressed over something, that affects the eggs too.
That's right. The eggs that are in her daughter.
You mentioned like being spiritual. I feel like in like spiritual
Yes.
world, you hear a lot about like generational traumas or breaking generational patterns or
This is something that I posted about on TikTok a long time ago about the eggs. And it was like one of the most popular posts I had. And I had a researcher reach out to me from UC Riverside, who is an indigenous person. And she was like, hey, I know you guys slapped the word epigenetics on this. We have known this in my culture for thousands of years.
Wow.
Like, we already understand this. Like, I know you're saying like, it seems like it's associated with spirituality. It absolutely is. And so there was this study they did where they took a male rat and they made him afraid of strawberries by every time he smelled a strawberry, they would shock him in the foot. So they have him breed with a female who is not afraid of strawberries. And then they take the pups completely away from the mom and the dad. So they will never meet their biological parents, meaning they can never behaviorally suggest a fear of strawberries, right? You didn't see dad running away from strawberries. You don't even know who this guy is. And they presented the babies with the smell of strawberries and the fear centers in their brains activated. They were afraid of the strawberries. And then they did it in the next generation. And the same thing happened. And so if you think about it through the lens of like evolutionary adaptation. If this dad learned that strawberries can hurt you, it would be a good idea to pass that information along to the next generation, right? These are dangerous. Strawberries are bad, right? And then maybe another generation after that. And like I believe in birds, they've shown this extend up to 5 generations. Think about slavery, right? Think about the Holocaust. Think about all of the horrible things that have happened in the world that are going to create some sort of programming to be passed on to the next generation to inform how they function. Yeah. It's all happening without any conscious understanding. So like, I genuinely hope and believe that I am doing things right now in my life that are causing epigenetic change for the future generations of my family. Right? Which can be a really,
like that.
Yeah, but
no. Well, actually, speaking of trauma, I feel like nowadays, especially on social media, you hear the term trauma a lot, or even within like your friends. It's like, oh, I'm traumatized, or like that was traumatic, or like, my trauma. Like people are always literally like saying that. Yeah. What is the actual like definition of trauma, and how can you differentiate something truly traumatic to something bad that has happened, but that maybe won't leave as much of a lasting impact? Is that even like true in itself?
It's absolutely true. Trauma exists on a spectrum, right? There's really significant trauma. So I've heard people be like capital T trauma or lowercase t trauma, right? We all experience trauma. What is trauma? When we experience stress, significant stress that is beyond our capacity, the way that the body responds to that is trauma. Trauma is not the thing that happened. Trauma is the way that our body responds to the thing that happened.
Is trauma, would you say like trauma's the wound?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And imagine that wounds come in all shapes and sizes, in all levels of severity. If you have a giant gash in your leg, like you're not just going to be able to ride it out and hope that it heals. Is probably, if you don't treat it, it's going to get infected.
I feel like this is like a good time to kind of reflect on how we can start healing ourselves, or like ways and methods that we could heal ourselves. How can we make peace with our past? How can we start that?
I think the best place to start is the acquiring of the knowledge of what is actually happening. There's an incredible book called The Body Keeps Score. Oh, yeah. You guys know this one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly for people who have experienced like early life trauma or things in their past, whether it was in childhood or not, that remain unprocessed. I think it's really important to learn exactly what that means physiologically, neurobiologically, so that you have the full, you can recognize the gravity of what it is, and also be able to acknowledge that so much of it is out of your control.
That's so crazy. Just like when you go within, you start healing yourself, how it projects outwardly.
What are some ways we can be more present? Because a lot of people think that like nowadays, like if we put our phones away, like that's just us being present. But we could be thinking about the past, or like what we're going to do in the future, what this week is going to look like. But how do we actually stick and just like be?
Yeah.
Easier said than done, right? Being in the present moment is part of what helps heal the nervous system. Because when you ask the question, am I okay right now? The answer has never been no. Because I mean literally right now. And so if you're still alive at any moment in your life, the answer to that question has been yes, I'm okay. Right? So, but it's so hard. Our brains are not designed to stay in the present moment, right? But the way that we do that, and part of why it is so healing, is because it only is relying on your senses. Using your senses is the best way to get into the present moment. I take my students to the botanical gardens at UCLA, and we do a mindfulness exercise where they have to find something in nature and write about it using all 5 of their senses.
I love that.
Nobody brings their phones. You just have to like focus on if it's a blade of grass for that time. And they come back to me, and I've heard this over and over again, that they have been reminded of their childhood. Like somebody was like, there were these ants walking in a line. And like, I remembered when I was a little kid and I would
watch the ants.
Ants walking in a line. And it was so fascinating. And I think children, we have that ability to be in the present moment as children, and then we lose it. We lose it over time. We get so caught up. And so reconnecting to your senses, your 5 senses, is the easiest way to get right back to the present moment. And it's so valuable and it's so good for you.
Let's get into audience questions.
The best part.
I'm still learning how to apologize. I know it's not like so narcissistic, but when I was little, my dad never actually said the words, "I'm sorry." If he would yell at us, he would just like he would literally just knock on the door and be like, "Are you hungry?" And he'd like get us food or get us chips or anything like that. He would never actually say the words, "I'm sorry." And I'm still trying to unlearn that. Like when my boyfriend and I fight, if he says I'm sorry, like it doesn't really do anything. And I always like think he has to buy me a gift, and that's how he shows that he's sorry. So I'm still trying to learn how to get rid of that toxic trait.
That's honestly something that I really relate to. I feel like I myself am learning how to apologize and be comfortable with apologizing. I kind of feel like, and maybe this is a little bit of ego, but I kind of feel like sometimes when you're apologizing, it's like, it's obviously easier to not admit when you're wrong. But when you're apologizing, it's almost like saying like, yeah, that was like me showing up as a version of myself that like it doesn't really resonate with who I really am. And like, it's kind of hard to admit that sometimes. So it's easier to just kind of like suppress it rather than just being like, hey, I'm sorry that I showed up that way or like did this and I hurt you because of it. So I myself am like relearning that apologizing and being vulnerable and owning up to when you're wrong or when you had like a moment that you were like maybe not fully being yourself because you were, you know, in the heat of the moment or whatever. That's valuable, and I'm learning how to apologize myself too, so I definitely relate to that.
That actually reminds me of this concept in my parenting course. It's called good enough parenting. And basically what the research shows is that if a parent is getting everything right 100% of the time, you're actually better off when your parent is imperfect about 30% of the time. Because it provides the opportunities for repair. And it's so important in a social dynamic. Not that everything is always good, but that when it's not good, that you can repair it, that you can reconnect because of it. And that is better for us than when things are just all perfect.
Yeah.
If the apology provides the opportunity for repair, then that's worth more than if nothing bad had happened in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I like that perspective.
Hi. Something I'm still unlearning from my childhood is probably that it's okay to talk about your feelings. Growing up in my household, it kind of wasn't a thing to do that. So I've kind of like growing up just kind of kept that to myself, which is a really bad trait, I would say so now, because it's healthy to talk about how you feel. And that's something I'm definitely still learning.
Yeah. That one, like I myself am trying to figure out. I feel like when you're younger, you kind of adopt these things that are a survival mechanism, like to protect yourself. And as you grow up, you like are able to acknowledge, like, I don't know if this is actually serving me as much as like it was when I was younger. So it's tough because it is kind of like knowing that you have to heal this thing and like work towards fixing this thing. But that like training yourself to express your needs, like talk about your needs, talk about like your boundaries, the things that you like don't like. So I don't know. I still have so many questions. I'm like trying to figure that out myself and gentle parent myself.
It's very vulnerable to feel your feelings or to express to other people, I'm feeling this way, because then there's the threat that they won't accept that you're angry with them or that they hurt your feelings or whatever those things are. If a person can't be receptive to you expressing your need to say, that hurt my feelings, or I'm really angry about that, then that probably isn't a great dynamic for you to be in.
It's sad as a society sometimes we don't accept other people's feelings, and we're like, oh, if you're sad about something, like go cry in the room, like away from other people, like we don't want to see it
Or deal with it.
And I think we should be more progressive to see feelings or welcome in feelings.
So one tool that a lot of therapists use, and my husband has used this, he'll be mad that I said that before. It's like this wheel of feelings where like the most vague feelings are on the outside, angry, sad, happy, whatever. And then as you move in, it's like a list of more specific emotions, like, oh, is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it embarrassment? Is it resentment? Is it whatever? And then it gets more narrow. And so you can narrow down to the exact feeling that you're actually feeling. And sometimes just naming it is enough to help you like process it. Yeah. And I've even like, again, with my kids, I've been like, you're really angry right now. And my son's like, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated.
Ooh. Okay, emotionally intelligent.
Yeah. So like, all right. So if you're frustrated, then be frustrated. Then let's talk about frustration. Like, let's feel that feeling, right?
Something I'm unlearning from my childhood is that it's okay to ask for help. I grew up with a teen mom, so we kind of grew up with each other in a sense. And I feel like when I was younger, I felt like my presence was already a bit of a burden for her, having had stopped her childhood and forced her into motherhood. And I didn't feel like asking for help with little things like schoolwork or anything else was relevant because she was already battling growing up and raising a child at the same time. So I'm now 21 years old, and I finally realized that she's there to be a mom, and we're both living our lives, but at the end of the day, we're each other's person, and we're here to support each other because it's always been us.
Yeah, that's such a powerful realization. Like acknowledging that now at 21, being like, actually, wait, let me reprogram how I was thinking about that. It's hard to ask for help. It's almost like you feel like you're a burden. I mean, that's literally what she said. But it's just like, you're like, I don't want to like inconvenience someone else.
How much do I feel like my needs are valid?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it goes all the way back.
But aren't your needs always valid?
Of course. They are, but do you believe it?
Yeah. We have our final question that helps us tie our episode together and tie it back to ease. How can understanding our childhood give us a sense of ease?
Understanding our childhoods can help shift our understanding of ourselves, our identity, right? In recognizing that the things that we do don't necessarily encapsulate who we are, right? And that we are all inherently good. And when we're not, it's usually a reflection of something that's gone wrong somewhere, right? So understanding that could and should give us the freedom to accept our own goodness.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So powerful. Wow.
Yes, mic drop.
There we go.
Mic drop. It was such a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Bonnie. And I feel like we learned a lot today. Yeah. And I feel like from this conversation, we might have to watch it a couple times just to really stick it in our brains. Yeah. But that was a really good conversation. And we really appreciate the time that you've taken to come out and we're so honored to have you here.
Yeah,
So
truly. Thank you so much. I've literally I'm like digesting everything you've said, and I have like just like I feel like I'm like seeing myself from outside of my body.
An absolute pleasure, truly.